Okay. How are you doing this morning? Are you okay? You feel good? You ready to go? Yeah? So, quick question. How are you with fairness? Who likes things to be fair? People like things to be fair? Yeah? And when you feel something's unfair, what happens? What's that, Tony? You're moaning. We can feel quite strongly when we feel something's unfair, can't we? You know, when me and Esther moved into our house 4, 5, 6 years ago now, it flies, doesn't it? You have to set all the energy companies up, don't you, and things like that. And we didn't receive a bill for a while. And then we received 2 bills. And they'd put our account on twice. So our house had 2 separate accounts, and they wanted to bill us for these other imaginary people that were also on our house. Now, you can imagine, I didn't feel that was very fair. And it wasn't fair. And we managed to get that sorted out. But you see it in life all the time. Lots of situations come to us, and when we feel it's not fair, we can resist it. But has God ever put you in a situation which didn't feel fair? Maybe. Now, I wanted to look at a prophetic picture this morning from the Old Testament, and it is on Hosea. Now, when I was thinking what to title this, Esther told me I should have called it Hosea's Hump, and I thought I'm not sure about that. See, you can ask her about that later. See, Hosea, he's a prophet for the Old Testament. And what I love about this story, and with many of the Old Testament prophets, is it's not just what they're saying that's important. See, often we can just look at what they're saying and think, okay, prophet, they've got good things to say, but it's not just the words they use, it's their life. What happens to them, the things they have to do, the things they have to go through, that in itself, that is the prophetic picture of God. And so we've got Hosea, and for those who aren't familiar with him, we think Hosea was, we'll go with an upstanding member of society. Probably had a lot of money and some status. And we're told that it comes to the point where Hosea is looking for a wife, wants a partner. So what does he do? He downloads Tinder and, no, can you imagine? So he's praying to God. As, you start that journey off with some prayer, and he says, Lord, I want a wife. And some things happen. And God gives in this picture, this image, and he says, do you know what? I want you to marry someone that you really wouldn't have thought you'd want to marry. I want you to marry Gomer. Now, there's some young ears in the room, but for those who know or don't know Gomer, we'll say she was a lady of the night, okay? She was a lady of the night. And Hosea, his background and who he was, you'd think he would not want to mix with someone who'd been in the situation that Gomer had found herself in many times. But yet God says, look, I want you to marry someone, and this person is going to betray you, to leave you. Now, straight away, come on, let's be honest. How many of us would be liking that? Let's not even think about it in the marriage. Let's just say God says, I want you to befriend someone, and it is inevitable that this friend will betray you. Most of us would be thinking, that's not for me. I'm tapping out now, Lord. That's enough is enough. That's just not going to happen. So Hosea is going into this situation, and God's spoken this over him. And some time goes on, and he does marry Gomer. And they eventually have some kids. We're not given the full time frame here, but they have some kids, and they have some very interesting names. Would anyone like to hear the names of the kids? Yes. So the first one, Jezreel, and it means castaway. I mean, what a thing to name your kid. Come on. Little castaway, little baby castaway. There's a lot of prophetic imagery and pictures being painted throughout the whole thing. It's foreshadowing of what's to come, what's going to take place, and it's building a bigger picture of God and Israel. Now, the second child was named Not Loved. That's what it meant, not loved. I mean, come on. Why would you? Not loved. And the third meant Not My People. So you can see it's laying it on pretty thick, isn't it? The foreshadowing of what's going to take place. There's betrayal, there's not love, there's not my people, there's all these emotions going on. And now I'd love to say that Hosea and Gomer, they now lived happily ever after and overcame all their differences. But that's not the story. So some time must pass, and we can assume they must get on a certain degree. They've had kids together. It's a different life, but we can assume they must get on to a certain extent. And now, the day comes where it says that Gomer, she just disappears. She goes back to her old life. Now, I want you to just put yourself in Hosea's shoes here, because come on, it's so easy to just listen to it, it's a story, but I want you to really put yourself in that situation. Someone that you've invested with so much time, so much energy, you've got kids with this person, and you knew you had something going on from God, thinking this person might cause me a lot of pain, and then the day comes, and they just leave, disappear. How would you feel? Not good. I mean, I know how I'd feel. Not good at all. So, picture the story. Gomer's gone. And now the natural reaction is for us to just think, well, that's the end of that then. It's over. It's done. I've invested enough into this person. I mean, come on. They've left me. I've given them everything. I gave them a great life. They owe me something. But they've left, so that's the end of it. And how do you think God responds? See, God speaks to Hosea. And he says, you know what? This is not the end of the story. I want you to go and find Gomer and to reconcile with Gomer. How would you be feeling? Come on, when someone's betrayed you, someone's hurt you, how do you feel in that moment? Do you want to go and look after that person and make peace, or do you just think, they should get what's coming to them? How do you react? What does the natural spirit inside of you do? That'd be tough to hear, wouldn't it? That'd be really tough. Because when we're hurt and we're wounded, our natural reaction is not to put ourselves out there for someone. I don't know about you, it is to close off. It's to say, look, I'm feeling this pain, I'm feeling this discomfort. I need to protect myself because I don't want to keep feeling this. I don't want to be put in a vulnerable position again. And God says to him, look, I get that. I get how you're feeling, Hosea. But there's something bigger going on here. And I know you're in pain and I know you're feeling vulnerable and what Gomer's done is not right. But I need you to now, just for a moment, take a breath, put that to one side. And now let's go find her. So can you imagine the situation? You're Hosea. You now have to find Gomer because it's not like today. You can't just ring someone up. They can't just be swiping, find them on Instagram. You've now got to go and find this person physically. And you know about her background. So you take yourself to this environment. You're going around, you're asking people, have you seen Gomer? I'm looking for my wife. I mean, there'd be some inherent shame with that straight away, wouldn't there? You go around asking people, have you seen my wife? Do you know where my wife is? I don't know where she is. I've not seen her in some time. Where is she? And then someone might say, yeah, I saw Gomer. I know where she is. Have you tried in this area of town? You need to, maybe have a look over there. So Hosea, this man with a lot of status and a lot of influence, maybe, he's then going into these areas of town that he wouldn't be used to. And we're given this picture. And let me just read this out. Hosea 3:1. The Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again. Though she is loved by another man and is an adulteress, love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes. So I bought her for 15 shekels. So the story is moving on. And he finds her. And you look at different commentaries, different scholars say different things. It was almost like some kind of auctions taking place. So you've got to, again, put yourself in this picture. You're walking in, you come in, you're Hosea, and then you see your wife, who's left you, and who's now stood on an auction at the back of the room, and you can see other people, other men, put in a price in. I mean, how would that make you feel? That is brutal, is it not? I mean, we might go through some stuff in life, we might feel some betrayals, we might see some things, but that is a brutal situation to be in. And yet God says, I want you. Now bear in mind the culture is completely different, so I'm not advocating that, but God says, I want you to buy your wife back, to buy her freedom. Someone who, by their society's standards, was already in freedom, in relationship with Hosea. He didn't need to free her. But yet God says, I want you to pay for Gomer's freedom. So she's effectively being bought twice. How would you feel? That is a lot to go through, is it not? That is a lot to go through. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver. Then I told her, you are to live with me many days. You must not be intimate with any other man, and you must not behave the same way you have today. So, again, different culture, different time is obviously laying the law down a little bit. But I can't quite get my head around fully of this situation, because I think in our society, I think as people, we're so quick to take offense, aren't we? We can be. And I wonder, has it always been this way? Or has modern technology, social media, has it brought this stuff out more? Because I just look at this image and I can see what God's trying to do. He says, look, do you know what? I need you to be like Hosea. Because in this story, we've all been the Gomer, haven't we? In this story, God's saying, look, if I'm Hosea and you're Gomer, each one of us, if we're being honest, we could say that we've walked away from God in some way, some area, that we've fallen short in some area, some way, whether it's a bad pattern or a sin habit, just something. Every now and again, we might just find ourselves returning to an old pattern. Does that make sense? Can you can see that in some way, because we're not robots, we're not perfect people, and the Bible tells us we're not perfect people, but we know sometimes we can be like Gomer. Things can get uncomfortable, things can get strange, and then we revert back to what we know. When things are tough, we can just go back to something of an old way. The Bible tells us that the disciples, once Jesus had been crucified and their whole expectations had been completely shattered, what they were expecting to happen didn't. It says some of the disciples, they went back to what they knew, because it had all changed. And sometimes we can do that, can't we? When things get tough, when the pressure comes on, we just go back to something that we knew. But in this story, he's showing us a picture of love. And I think just a reminder this morning that love is messy, isn't it? Love is painful. We're not robots. We don't all get it right. Sometimes we will be offended in our relationships, but love encourages us to move past that. I'm a firm believer that love is what can change the world. I think it's so natural to meet some negative behavior with some more negative behavior. You notice you don't have to teach people that. We're watching little Judah grow, and it's amazing that you realize you don't have to teach them how to fib or anything. That just comes naturally to them. Like, how many biscuits have you had? I'll be like, none. Like, I know you've had at least 3. It's like, it just comes naturally to them, doesn't it? And I know that's only in a little sweet way, with Judah, but it's so natural to just try and get the sword out when someone's poking a sword at you. That we want to fight fire with fire. And Jesus is saying in this situation, look, do you know what? There's times you're going to feel betrayed, you're going to feel hurt, you're going to feel broken, you're going to feel neglected, you will feel overlooked. And in those moments, that is the time when you can really shine. Not when everything's going well, not when everything is just going the way you would imagine it, not when all your expectations have been met, but in those moments of weakness, that is when God's love can really shine. See, Gomer went back to what she knew. Some of the disciples went back to what they knew, and the temptation is there for all of us to go back to what we know. But when God has brought you from one thing to another, you've got to hold the line, haven't you? You've got to keep walking. It's not always going to make sense. It won't always make sense. How many of us think we know how everything works? How many of us would say, yeah, when I look at the whole picture of my life, it all just makes sense? Has God ever put us in a situation we're just a bit unsure about? It happens, doesn't it? If you could look at your whole life and, it might not make sense to us. I'm sure Hosea, he didn't understand, God, why are you putting me in this situation? It wouldn't be what I would choose. It wouldn't be what I would choose for myself. But God's building a bigger image, a bigger prophetic image that ultimately has been looked at for thousands of years, that has shown a prophetic picture between God and his people that we see with Israel and yes, with the Gentiles going forward into the New Testament, that people again and again, we walk away from God or we put something above God. And yet in this story, he is saying, look, I'm still going to be there for you. This side of eternity, I'm going to be Hosea. I'm going to be coming and finding you. I'm going to pursue you. I'm going to be going around town. I'm going to be looking for you. I'm going to be asking everyone, where is Gomer? Where's my son? Where's my child? I will be looking for you. And sometimes I just think we need that confidence, that reassurance, don't we? Because we as people, we can be quick to rule people off. We can be quick to abandon people. But God says, look, I will not leave you nor forsake you. In this area of life, you might feel I've fallen short. You might feel I've let you down, God. I don't know how to come back from this. You might feel the shame of being stood on that auction with people just making an offer, but God walks in and he says, even though I don't need to, even though you might not deserve it, I am going to buy your freedom again. And I will do it right now. I think that is a confidence we just can't find anywhere else. Because humans, we let each other down. But God, he's the good Father. And it says he'll never leave us nor forsake us. We need that confidence. If we build our faith, if we build our relationship with God on anything less than that love, then it won't last. Ultimately, fear, it only gets you so far, doesn't it? You need to know that you're just loved by God. That he loves you so much that even though we don't deserve it by the world's standards, he's going to buy you back. And John 3:16, we know probably the most well-known verse in the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever would believe in him, they wouldn't perish, but have everlasting life. I think it's such a simple verse, but it encapsulates the whole entirety of the Bible, really. That the whole thing is a rescue mission of God and humanity. The whole thing is a picture of Hosea coming, pursuing you, seeking you, looking for you. Because whatever you've done today, whatever you've done this week, we can just let it go. I will buy you back. I will look after you. He knew love was messy. He knew love was costly. You know, the whole picture of the cross is not a pretty image. And we can shy away from it. We can think it was brutal. You know, the Romans used it as a method of torture. But he changed that whole image. He changed the whole perception of the cross and made it a picture of love. It looked messy. It looked brutal. But up there on the cross was his way, was God's way of saying, look, I will redeem all of humanity. I will redeem you. I will fight for you. I'll be with you. Though there's been betrayals, though there's been failures, I will be with you. And I think if we let that love soak into us, if we can live in that place, it can really help us. You know, it can help us physically, it can help us spiritually, it can help our character. See, that is a picture of love. And if we're being honest with ourselves, sometimes we can be the opposite, can't we? You know, how many of us have experienced people being critical, mean-spirited, things of that nature? It's tough, isn't it? You know, I know some of the, I've grown up a Christian, I found faith myself when I was a bit younger, and sometimes the people who want to present themselves as the most holy, the most spiritual, if I look back over my life, I think, unfortunately, my experience of those people, they've been the most mean-spirited, the most critical, the most judgmental. And you think, I get it, okay, you know, we're all different, but when I look at this story, is that not what a picture of love should be? You know, there's a time for correction, there's a time to work things through, you know, we believe in those things, but ultimately, people can tell when something isn't coming from a place of love. You know, people can tell. People can feel that, and this, I see, is such a picture of love. And it makes me ask the question in my own heart, where am I this morning? Am I like Hosea, or could I be more like those Pharisees? Because it's easy for us to pretend. We can all give an illusion of being close to God, can't we? We're going to go into communion shortly, and I don't want it to just be a routine. You know, we do this every week, but we always say, I don't want it to just be the motions that we go through, because I do believe this is one of the most important things we can do. You know, that we just come to God every week. Whatever's happened, we can just leave it all at the cross, because we can make a fresh decision every day to say, Lord, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to put this thing behind me. I'm going to develop a new pattern, a new way, and follow you. And sometimes we might just need to let that love in our heart a bit. It's easy to grow cold, isn't it? It's easy to go through the motions. You know, as I said, I've been in church most of my life. It's so easy to just come to church, do the thing, you know, and there we go. But ultimately, this is about a relationship between you and God. It's not about someone speaking. It's not about a sermon or a preacher. It's not about music, though we like all those things. Ultimately, it is about you and God. How are you? How is your heart with the Creator of everything? Because He is your Heavenly Father. And it's easy to be cold and to be distant with Him. But He says there's nothing more important than being in that relationship, being in that covenant. And I know I'm pressing the point, but I just want us to analyze our own hearts this morning. And we can pray that brave prayer to search our hearts. Because ultimately, no one can do the legwork for you but you. You know, I said a few weeks ago, I was at a conference not too long ago, and they used this phrase that only you can do your own press-ups. And, you know, it really resonated with me because it's true. No one else can get you in shape, can they? You know, you can buy a gym membership and you can, you know, get a personal trainer and talk to them, but if you don't put in the work, no one can do it for you. You know, you can have a gym membership for a year, 2 years, 3 years. If you never go, it's not doing anything. And it's the same, we've got to be proactive with our relationship with God. And I know I can be laboring this a little bit, but we get this on a human level. If you stop talking to someone, if you stop interacting with someone, if you stop seeing someone, what happens on a human level? If you stop talking to your spouse or your partner or your friend, what happens? Nothing good. You'll start to drift apart. I know some relationships are tougher than that, but the point is you need to communicate. Me and Esther, we're talkers between each other, I suppose. So we kind of like defrag our day and we'll just talk to each other. But I can tell you now, if I just came in one day, I didn't say a word to her, she would know something was up. As I would if Esther came home and didn't say a word to me, I'd think, uh-oh, something's not right here. See, we're all different, but our relationships, we need that communication. And we're the same with God. He's always there. He's never going to leave you. He's always there with arms wide open, but he says, just come to me, pray to me. Just share your problems with me, cast them on me. And we'll work through things together. A lot of you know my situation at the moment. We've been going through some big stuff, and it's hit me quite hard just with my dad passing, surprisingly. And I was saying to people, it would have been so easy to just go the other way, to close myself off. Because the temptation was there to think, what, I'm a bit angry, I'm a little upset, I don't quite understand the big picture, but I know there's just always more going off, and that your ways are higher than our ways, and I know that we're all living in this fallen world. It would have been so easy for me to just root myself in a place of bitterness. But actually what I've found is I've just needed to draw close to God in this season. Even though I'm hurting and, you still need to work through this process, I've drawn closer to God. And he has met me there. In a place of pain, you can find him. In a place of pleasure, you can find him. But if you're hurting, you can find him. There's going to be that barrier, there's going to be that natural temptation that wants to stop you from going to God. There's going to be something in you that says, I will not say that God is good. And I know one of my biggest breakthroughs, I've said before many times, one of my biggest testimonies here is that when I was in a place of pretty much being angry with God, I had to just declare that God was good. I didn't want to, I didn't feel it, but I knew it from Scripture, and I declared that.